Welcome back, everybody. This Week in America, website thisweekinamerica.us. As mentioned, our guest on the program tonight, back with us, Jack Daly, author of Hyper Sales Growth, the #1 best-selling business book on Amazon in 7 countries. Jack is an expert in sales and sales management, inspiring audiences to take action on customer loyalty and personal motivation through explosive keynote and general session performances and presentations. He draws upon several decades of business experience with several successful stints as the CEO of fast-growing companies. Jack has a bachelor's degree in accounting, MBA. He was a U.S. Army captain, is an accomplished author with audio and DVD programs, and he's with us on This Week in America. Jack, great to have you back on the program. Always a pleasure to have you here.
Rick, it is a pure delight. Of all of the interviews that I do around the world, quite frankly, you do your homework, my friend, and so I was thrilled the last time on the show and looking forward to today.
Well, that's very kind. I thank you very much for that. And Jack's book is Hyper Sales Growth. His website is very simple, Jack Daly with 1L, jackdaly.net. One thing I'd like to talk about, we touched on it last time, and we talked a lot about your background, and you talk about the corporate culture and how important that is. That there are a lot of things that your competitor can steal from you. They can't steal your people. They can't steal your culture. Let's talk about corporate culture. What is the correlation between corporate culture and thriving sales? Is there a direct link?
Absolutely a direct link. People do business with people, and they tend to do business with people they like. And so if you create an environment in your business where the employees actually like what they're doing and like working in the company they're in, that manifests itself over to the customer, Rick. And, people will buy more and more frequently from people that are just enjoying what they're doing. So creating an environment like that is incumbent upon every leader in business.
You say in the book, Hyper Sales Growth, that you really can't make people motivated. You hire them that way, and you keep them motivated by the culture. So the culture really goes hand in hand, doesn't it, with thriving sales? You need to give them the environment where they can thrive. They thrive for themselves, and of course, they thrive for the company.
Well, you're making me grin here only because I have so many clients that call me initially and say, is there something you can do or tell me how to motivate my people? And it's like, it's as if I have a bag with sprinkle dust that I sprinkle on people. And so what I tell them is, hire them already motivated and then create an environment, a culture in your business where that motivation internally in each of us self-releases. And, I'll hear all kinds of things about different generations don't have a certain work ethic, but we're not putting them in an environment where they actually enjoy letting themselves go and give you the work that you're looking for. So the key is the culture, creating that great environment.
Well, it's interesting because you talk about sales manager and the role of sales manager, and so often you think, okay, they're really in charge of sales, they're out there every day, they're pushing, and you basically say the job of the sales manager is not to grow the sales, but to grow the people that are out there every day and doing the sales. And you had I think your largest sales force was like about 2,600 people. But the key to a successful sales manager is hiring the right people, correct?
Yeah, so it's a very simple process for me, Rick. No matter how good I am at sales, and I started selling at the age of 6, and I own the market and charge twice the price of every kid that I competed with. I've been at the game a long time. But here's what I know, no matter how good you are as a salesperson, there's only so many calls you can make. There's only so many calls you can take. There's so many sales that you can write up. And so it's an important function, but it's limited to the individual. But what would it be like if I were to hire 10 people, put them in that right culture that we were talking about, train them on the things that I know? Well, no matter what, those 10 people will outproduce me. Now, it gets very interesting because if I change it from 10 to 20, well, now we're really in another ball game. And if I change the 20 into 100, and as you said, if you start to go to 2,600, there's no way, no matter how good you are as a salesperson, you can't compete with that kind of a number. So the key to hyper growing your company is to grow your sales force in both quantity and quality.
You're listening to This Week in America. Our guest on the program is sales management expert, best-selling author Jack Daly. The book is Hyper Sales Growth. The website is jackdaly.net. Daly is with one L. And talking about creating the corporate culture, you've got a chapter, Culture by Design, Not Default. One of the keys you have in there is the power of recognition. And that's so interesting because it doesn't cost you really any money to recognize people. Talk about that, how important that is, and it's something that you've used as well in your corporate life.
So I'll get in front of my CEO business owner audiences around the world, and one of the questions I'll throw to them is this. If we were having a huge event with all of your employees attending from all of your companies, and the leaders were sitting in the back of the room, the owners, and I came out on stage to ramp them up and get them excited about the year, how would you feel sitting in the back row if I stood in front of them on stage and said, by a show of hands, how many of you are overly recognized? And unfortunately, there wouldn't be very many, if any, hands up. So what we should do is try to figure out how can we get it to where our entire workforce would stand up on their chairs and start screaming and yelling. And there are literally companies out there, Rick, that's the reaction I would get if I asked that question. So when you talk about little to no money for recognition, one of the tools that I recommend to business owners and leaders all the time is a blank sheet of paper. A blank sheet of paper is one of the most important tools for recognition because I can stop by your office, your place of employment, and just write you a note and say, Rick, on the way in this morning, I was thinking about how well the company's doing, and I think about how many good compliments I hear about you from your customers and their fellow colleagues that you work with, and I just wanted to tell you that we wouldn't be successful without people like you. Keep doing what you're doing, and just know that Jack Daly appreciates you. And then I'd sign it and leave it on your place where you work. That will change not only your behavior that day or that week or that month, it could very well change your behavior for the rest of time.
I mentioned the sales force you had, 2,600 people, and you really wanted to keep in touch and acknowledge special days, events, successes that they had. And that sounds overwhelming, 2,600 people, and you basically say, once you set up the process, it's not that difficult, and it pays tremendous dividends.
Yeah, let me give you an illustration, Rick, and thanks for teeing that up. So birthdays and company anniversary dates. Well, those are pretty readily available in the HR area. So with 2,600 people, I would just say to my HR head, look, on the 15th of each month, why don't we stack birthday cards for everybody for next month on my desk and have them addressed to their home, and do the same with their anniversaries and tell me how many years they've been with the company. And literally each month I would spend an hour at my desk and just sign these things and put some notes on them, hand them back to HR, and they would bleed them out in the mail as the dates occurred next month. That is a very simple system and cost me an hour of invested time that I ended up leveraging all over my hundreds of offices throughout the U.S. because I was doing something that no other business leader seems to do based on the feedback that we get from the people in the seats.
Jack Daly, our guest on This Week in America. His website is jackdaly.net. Daly is D-A-L-Y. The book is called Hyper Sales Growth. So many great thoughts and ideas, and many like we're talking about. It's not going to cost a fortune. It's just getting the right mindset and getting out there into the workplace. The power of handwritten notes, impressive as well. And you talk in the book about, you're giving a seminar, I think it's in Chicago, a businessman comes up later, and talks about how he assumed the reign of his company from his father who had passed away. An employee died, he goes to the funeral, goes back to the house afterwards, and there are a couple of handwritten notes framed on this gentleman's wall. And the guy is thinking, I guess you sort of downplayed the power of the handwritten note, but this employee thought so much of the handwritten notes, he had them framed, put up on his wall. And again, this is something that costs virtually nothing.
Absolutely. So I have something as a salesperson that I carry with me everywhere, and we give this instruction in the book as well as to other salespeople in our workshops. And that is, I carry with something I call a money bag. And it resembles the bags that banks that company owners would use to put their checks and their cash in to take deposits to the bank. But my money bag actually has thank you cards and envelopes and stamps and pens and everything that I would need, so that I don't have to look around for anything when I need them. And whenever I call on a prospect or a customer, after I leave, I have my handwritten notes that I send them from the parking lot before I even leave their place of business and stick them in the postal box. I have generated millions of dollars of business, Rick, from just those handwritten notes, because the more we see technology and the fact that everybody's carrying this mobile computer called what used to be called a phone, and sends their emails thanking the prospect or the customer, I'm taking the time to send a handwritten note, which completely differentiates me from everyone else out there.
What's interesting in the book, Hyper Sales Growth, you talk about a personal experience like that. You're in Pittsburgh. You're meeting the CEO of a company. You've got 3 vice presidents that are there. You go out, the first thing you do, you enter them in the data. Well, I'll let you tell the story. You put them in the database. You send them individual emails. We'll talk about the importance of not doing an email for everybody. You send the handwritten note. They were so impressed, they hired you 4 or 5 times after that to come back and talk to their group.
Not only did they hire me 4 or 5 times, but the CEO the first time got in front of 175 salespeople for a full day, and in his introduction mentioned that email that he got plus the handwritten note is when he said, we're putting 175 people in the room, and if the only thing we learn is how he did that, it'll be worth his time and money. Well, they ended up hiring me 8 more times, plus they hired me for 2 clients of theirs as a gift, plus they hired me for 4 one-hour webcasts in a year, and all of it came from this simple process of a handwritten note and a quick email.
Jack Daly, our guest. The book is called Hyper Sales Growth. His website is jackdaly.net. It's an excellent book, a lot of great ideas, and time is going by way too quickly. So get information on the book. It literally will make tremendous changes in your life. One of the chapters is called Half of Sales is a Head Case. And let's talk about that, because we're thinking, okay, we need all the technical skills and all of this. What if you get out of bed with the wrong attitude? The day's pretty much lost at that point, right?
Half is in our head. Getting up in the morning and saying, God bless the competition, I'm going to outwork them and outplay them, is half of the battle. And so if you come at the business with negativity or an idea that you're not going to be successful, you're moving in that direction before you've even left your home. So I say, get your head on right. And if you can get your head on right and then build the systems and processes for consistency in your marketplace, I don't think you're beatable.
The book is Hyper Sales Growth. Jack Daly, our guest on This Week in America. You talk about in that section 5 foundational laws for self-renewal. One is interesting self-discipline. And you say, if you don't have an assistant, you are an assistant. Talk about the logic behind that, because when you think about it, it's like, this really makes a lot of sense.
So the power of an assistant. I'm 66 years old. I built 6 companies from scratch into national firms, and I've been speaking now for the last 20 years around the world. But let me tell you what one of my weaknesses is. Hands-on technology. We're on Skype here today, and if I were working with the computer, I start freezing up, and I'm just not very good at it. And so I'm fortunate that, Rick, you're guiding me along here. So I know as a salesperson that it would benefit me to leverage a contact management system. But my complaint is, if you had me sitting at this computer for hours, you're not tapping into my high payoff activity, which is being in front of the customer, either on the phone or face-to-face. So it would be easier for me. Let's say I was making $50 an hour as a salesperson. It would be easier for me to hire a 12-year-old kid who is very comfortable with this computer, do it much better, much quicker than me, and open up all kinds of windows in this contact management system that I wouldn't even know where to find them. I could pay this individual $8 or $10 an hour. They'd be thrilled. And then I could then take that time and go out and make these $50 calls. Well, all I need to do is sweep 10 hours a week off of my desk, and I'm going to put an extra $20,000 in my pocket by year end.
Tips like that in the book, Hyper Sales Growth. It's filled with tips like that. It's by Jack Daly, our author, guest in the program today, an expert in corporate culture. A couple minutes left in the program. One of the chapters is talking about the birth of a salesman, and you find this so often. And you say something, again, simple. It doesn't cost a whole lot of money, like changing your daily greeting can make you more accessible to a client and open up a whole different relationship. How many people go in the first day in their job, they do a greeting, and it stays that way for like the next 2 or 3 years, and they never update it? I think, and you make the point, as a client, I want to know when you have some idea when you're going to get back with me. If I don't know you're gone for 3 days, I'm going to be waiting your phone call, and I'm going to be getting upset when I don't hear back from you.
Well, it gets worse than that, Rick. So there's a lot of options. There's a lot of competitors. And there's a lot of us today are conditioned on immediate gratification. So if you put me into what the customers have told us is the black hole, giving that greeting, your call is important to me, I'm either away from my desk or on the other line, that we're so tired of hearing that message. As you say, it could have been that message could have been recorded years ago. With the tough economy that we went through, you could have been laid off. If I were waiting for you to call, you may never call. So I, as a customer, hearing that greeting, am thinking, is the person going to call me? How long are they going to call? How long is it going to be? Or maybe alternatively, I just call another competitor right now and put an order in. So what we say is update your voicemail message every day, put the day that it is, put the date that it is, and most importantly, give the caller some idea when you're going to get back to them, in the morning or in the afternoon.
And again, this takes maybe a couple of minutes, even if you have to do it several times. It doesn't take more than 2 or 3 minutes. A couple of minutes left in the program has gone by way too quickly. I would love to have Jack back with us. I want to talk about a personal accomplishment we were talking about before we started the program. We talked the last time about later in life you reset some goals and you were out there doing the triathlons, the Ironman, running marathons. And I'm thinking it's real cold where I am, and you're telling me you came back from where?
So I just came back home in California.
And not from Maui, where people go this time of the year. Where did you come back from in the winter?
So I came back yesterday from Antarctica.
Okay.
Well, I'm trying to run a marathon in all 7 continents, and Antarctica happens to be a continent. So there's 2 groups a year that go over there and run this crazy marathon in the worst of conditions, and only pelicans would choose to live there.
And you did well, and you crossed that off your list. And what an accomplishment. I mean, as you're coming back, and I understand getting out of there was no simple task, but as you're coming back, you have to really feel this self-gratification that I really did something.
Yeah, there was less than 100 of us. We pitched tents and slept over there overnight. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, we got up. At 5, the gun went off, and off we went. It was about as inclement weather as you'd ever want to experience. And yet, we all came back feeling incredibly accomplished. And it all comes down to, Rick, having a purpose, having a vision, and then identifying what are the steps needed to get that vision accomplished.
Well, and I got 30 seconds, but we talked about it last time. And having a coach to work with you, you're a coach to so many people, yet you're not beyond going out and getting your own coach. It's like, okay, I'm going to find somebody to motivate me.
Yeah. So how about this? So I have 5 coaches on my personal goals. And they meet with me individually 4 times a year, so that's 20 visits. I have 3 coaches on my business that we meet quarterly, and I have 6 coaches on my triathlon sport, because I don't want to redo the book. I don't want to reinvent the wheel. And I also know that if I have these coaches, they're going to hold me accountable, and it'll enhance my performance.
It's a sort of your own board of directors. In fact, that's what you call it. If you go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and go to the YouTube link, you'll find the first interview we did with Jack, and where he talks a lot about the board of directors and how they're able to motivate him. His book is called Hyper Sales Growth, the #1 best-selling business book on Amazon in 7 countries. Our guest is Jack Daly, D-A-L-Y. His website is jackdaly.net. Jack, would love to have you back in the program. And the time went by way too quickly. So many great things you've got in the book. Would love to have you back with us. Thank you for sharing some thoughts with us on the program today.
and do well with that weather, and let's have spring come soon.
Yes, the next time we talk, it'll be like 80 degrees all across the country. So we're at least all talking in the same climate. I was going to make Jack feel bad because we're in Indiana and it's cold, and he's talking about coming back from Antarctica. So no sympathy for the weather here in the Midwest. Jack, thank you for joining us. Thanks for listening, everybody. Once again, Jack Daly, the website jackdaly, DALY.net. Information at our website, thisweekinamerica.us.